The perfect idea or the perfect job or the perfect partner is just going to come to them. The only way that comes is knowing yourself. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Actually Good Coffee podcast, the show where I talk about all things coffee related, all while I drink a cup of coffee. Today, I am drinking that same Tanzania origin that I decided on for that really good coffee review episode I posted about a month ago. I know I have to get better at posting. It's been one crazy week. I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about something that I spoken on before, but wanted to really focus and dial it on today, which is this idea of when you don't have a father or when dad is gone. Or I thought, well, hold on, let me go over the numbers. This past week, we sold 589 pounds of coffee total. If we're looking at last year's same week, we sold 704 pounds. What a punch in the gut. But let's get to today's topic, when dad is gone. As you all might know, my father actually passed when I was 19, so I was relatively young when he did pass away, and I had to learn pretty quickly what it really meant to just have conviction in making my decisions and feeling confident in the life choices that I have made. And truthfully, I wish I had somebody in my life that could give me some insight, and I did, and I actually found a lot of insight into people that I found online, like Jordan Peterson is a great example. But I just wanted to keep this same idea and sort of pretend like I'm talking to myself at age 19 and reinforcing some ideas that I sort of knew were important back then, but I know are especially important now, and things that you should keep in mind as you go about your life. So again, why is this idea important? Well, there's going to be a day where you need to take care of your parents and your father. And I know that there are philosophers that talk about this idea, but it's just this idea of the death of your father, where you ultimately don't become a man until your father eventually passes away. But I think that can happen either both mentally and physically. You can view your father in a different light when you have essentially gone out and become your own man. You need to create your independence so that it's strong enough to be able to take care of not only yourself, but somebody else. You owe it to them. They've taken care of you your entire life. Your father has guided you your entire life. And even if it's not them, it'll be for somebody else someday, whether that's a child or a family member or a friend. You want to be reliable. You want to get to a point in your life where you are reliable. You can be leaned on when times are tough, because they're going to be tough. They're going to be very difficult, and you need to be that foundation for somebody else. So what's something that you can do? Well, the one thing you can do right now is move out. Move out of your parents' house. If anyone really knows me, they know I really preach this idea deeply. A lot of people might think it's silly. I'm a huge advocate of getting up, taking your things, and moving out of your parents' house as early as possible. You want to be on your own as much as possible so that you can start making mistakes as early as possible. There's always going to be excuses. Oh, it's a stupid idea. It's silly. Why would I waste the money on rent when I could live at my parents' house? Why would I go out and put myself at risk when I have so much safety at home? That's the point. You have to figure it out. You're going to have to figure it out someday. It's going to be difficult no matter what. Do it now. You might as well do it now, because you're going to get to a point in your age where, again, your parents are going to need you to take care of them. So it's best to start that process early, get a feel for it now, so that it becomes easier and easier the older you get, instead of just pushing it off and waiting until it might even get to the point where you don't have a choice but to do it. And you don't want to be in that position. You want to prepare as much as possible. You need to pay for rent. You need to get health insurance. Go get a job at a restaurant. I promise you can do this. You might say you live in a tough area that doesn't have that type of high volume. You will be able to find a job that will pay for your rent. You might not live in the most amazing home, but find some roommates. Go on Craigslist. Go on Zillow. Find people that are renting out a room. You can make it work. This idea where it's stupid or silly or it's not possible, get rid of that. It's done with. It is possible. And personally, when I was younger, I was able to get things done when my back was up against the wall and I had no other option. And people do not go through that enough, especially at an early age. And the way to get better at that is just by doing it. That's it. This works especially for, I would say, like the upper middle class people that have grown up in a large sum of wealth. I'm speaking on that personally because I was raised in that environment too. They're so protected from the outside world that I think it's a lot more difficult for those people to do it. And they need to get away from that environment. They need to get away from that as much as possible because it's only going to build resentment towards the people that you love, because all of your life choices, anything that doesn't work out, you're going to blame it on them. And that's worse. That is worse than going out and making the mistakes and dealing with the repercussions yourself, because then it's all on you and you need that. This is the first domino that will build your confidence in having some conviction with your decisions. There are studies on this now. Kids are becoming less and less confident as they get older. They're getting their license later. There's more cases of anxiety and depression, which I believe is in part because they become so reliant on their parents. You have no self-worth, and you have to check in with your parents or therapist before you make a decision. And that's going to lead to resentment, because when it doesn't work, it's not your fault. It's your parents' fault, or it's your therapist's fault. Now, because they've made the decision for you. So when it doesn't work out, because there are going to be times where decisions that you make don't work out, that's just life. You can't take the blame. You put it on your parents, and that resentment builds and builds and builds until you go nuts, and then you probably break the relationship off much longer than it needs to be. And especially as you get older, you realize that you might not have as much time with your parents. I really think that it's best to do this early. Get that experience early in your life so that you don't wait and push that resentment period or that time that you might have away from your parents. Shorten that as much as possible. You're going to want to get to a point where you can appreciate them, take care of them if you need, and just enjoy the time you have left. You need to actively make mistakes. You need to fuck up now so that it doesn't happen later. I see this a lot. People are so nervous to go out and expose themselves honestly that they just don't do it. And they hide and they wait until it gets to the point where they have no other option to expose themselves. And because of that, the outcome is so much worse than it needed to be. It's much more magnified than it would have been if they did it yesterday, a week ago, a year ago. It's terrible. And again, I think this really ties into just your own confidence within yourself and your own self-worth. Everybody wants the reward without the work. And their standard is set so low because of the way that they were raised. It's not what you're supposed to do, but rather what you're not supposed to do. This journey of life that you go on, it's not about finding what you're supposed to be doing, it's finding out what you're supposed to not do. The only way you figure that out, again, is just by the amount of experiences you have throughout your life. The more repetitions you get in early of knowing what you shouldn't be focusing on, so you can focus on what you do focus on. Everybody's so set in this idea where the perfect idea or the perfect job or the perfect partner is just going to come to them. The only way that comes is knowing yourself and knowing what you don't like or don't want to be or don't want to focus on. And guess what? The only way to figure that out is by doing as many different things possible. I mean, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to wrap this all up with a story actually today. So I had a sales meeting with a potential salesperson for Maiden. We were talking, I was going over our business motto, our business plan, our goals, our core values, and I felt really confident in this meeting. I was like, this is going to be easy. I know the numbers like the back of my hand. We have this meeting. There's about 5 separate times where I realized that I should have done more work, or I should have known these numbers better so that I can better convey this position to the person that I'm hiring, because I know that this position would be a good way to make a good source of income. But even the examples that I've used within the conversation are not as attractive as I have thought that they were meant to be. And that's just because I didn't prepare. It's not like I'm trying to swindle anyone or try to bring them onto a position that they don't want to do. It's just that I have not exposed myself to the reality of the situation enough to convey the potential in which you can grow within taking on this role. And that's on me. That's my responsibility. I was the one that put the meeting together. I was the one that prepared for it inefficiently. I didn't do the things that I was supposed to do, and that's because I wasn't fully prepared. And now I know. So the next time that I have a meeting, I can go in knowing what I have to do now because I didn't do what I was supposed to. And I hope anyone that's listening can use this to apply to their situation, hopefully. God forbid when the time comes when your father passes away and you're on your own and you have to make the decisions. But I would really try to sit in that and think about how difficult that time is going to be. And if you don't have a father, you need to figure this out for yourself at one point or another. Some of you might have done it earlier than others, but especially if you're struggling with this concept, I would really think about utilizing some of the things that I've talked about. They might not work, but I think that at least gives you the opportunity to find out whether they're going to work or not. So thank you guys for listening. I will talk to you again very soon.